Shorlette. I am one half of Sugar Cube Records, and we are in downtown Durham at the Carrick on historic Paris Street. And I'm here with my twin sister and fellow co-founder of Sugar Cube Records, Shorlette Ammons. Hey, Shorlette.
Hey, Charlotte.
So we're here to do a little brief interview for AfterEllen.com. We hope you can check it out. You should already be checking it out if you're looking at this right now. So we're going to talk a little bit with Shorlette about Language Barrier, her upcoming release, actually to be released in
A week from now, February 5th is the actual release date, and it's a co-release between Sugar Cube Records and our friends Church Key Records, who are also based here in Durham.
Cool. So let's jump right into some questions that the folks at After Ellen shared with us. We'll maybe wing a few as we go. So on this record, Language Barrier, you work with a bunch of talented artists and as well as composer Daniel Hart. So can you first of all tell us about that relationship with Daniel and then walk us through the life cycle of a song?
Well, talking about Daniel is easier. Daniel is a friend that we've been friends and comrades and collaborators for a while, dating back to probably a record I did with the Dynamite Brothers a few years ago called And Lovers Like, where Daniel added some strings. But I've known Daniel since his days here in the Triangle area when he was a musician in Chapel Hill. He's in Texas now, but we've stayed in touch. He's kind of like my go-to strings guy, who I call when I need like lush strings, which in hip hop is not that often because you can sample so much now. But for this record, which is the music compositions are really intricate. I call Daniel because he just done this record called The Orientalist, and I was extremely interested and excited about the music on that record. And so he basically gave me the instrumentals, and I wrote new lyrics to them. All the music on this record was written by Daniel. We started with just like basic structure of songs from the record, from his last record, and then he added segues that were samples of songs from the record. So in that sense, it's all kind of glued together. It's like a really incestuous work in that way. But Daniel's the man. I love him as a musician, and also he's just one of the most genuine humans I know. So it's an honor to have his music on this record.
Seems like it came off really well and feels like it just makes sense the way it came together.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a challenge for me as a writer because I'm not used to writing songs that are so undulant and full of change and movement and color. Like in hip hop, you have things are differently dynamic than in like this way of writing songs. So it was a real challenge, and I rode around with that music in my car and like was driving and recording notes into my voice message on my phone. So yeah, it's like a really challenging experience, and I'm grateful to Daniel for sharing that with me.
Yeah. Mama wouldn't be happy about that. She wouldn't think that would be a safe way to do things.
What?
Riding around in your car and recording these. So, Mama. So you on this record there is a whole range of talented, which I think is kind of an understatement, musicians and artists on the record. So maybe shout out some of those folks and talk a little bit about the experience of getting to work with this range of artists.
Well, yeah, to say talented is an understatement. The artists that agreed to work on this record are people who I've just generally looked up to for their musicianship. They've influenced the work I do. The first single, Earth Intro, features the Indigo Girls, who I've had the pleasure of touring with and building a relationship with. They're really keen on what's happening in Durham musically. So to have them on the record also represents Durham in a certain way. Yeah, Indigo Girls, Michelle and Cello. I can't really say that without smiling because that means like a lot to me. She's like literally the artist who's probably most inspired and influenced me to be who I am artistically, in terms of not just the music I make and the way I like try to defy and not be beholden to genre, but also in terms of like the way I present on stage. We could talk about that later in a whole another interview, but Michelle is on it. Suki, who is my comrade, Berlin-based rapper who rhymes in German, that's her native tongue, and so we've worked together a lot, so I'm excited to have her on there. Heather McIntyre of Mount Moriah, my dude Median, who is a member of the Foreign Exchange Music Group and one of the best MCs I know, literally. Jocelyn Ellis, who's from Durham but now based in Charlotte. Phil Cook, who's just amazing. I call him, he's kind of like a swamp guitarist kind of dude, just immersed in the blues. His Golden Messenger, which to me is like a true honor. He's one of my favorite musicians based here. And Amelia Meath from Sylvanesso, who is like not only, you know, a dear friend, but also one of my favorite vocalists. So I hope I didn't forget anybody, but that's who's present, and it's amazing, really. In terms of genre defiance and also just the caliber of musicians who agreed to work on this record.
Cool. So, you know, you've been a writer and a poet for a very long time, as long as I can remember.
Sorry about that.
Before high school, what was it, Pig in a Wig in second grade? Yeah. So how do you view
the pig who lost her
the
wig?
pig who lost her
who had
wig.
a date with Paul the pig.
All right.
But she couldn't go because she couldn't find her wig.
That was the beginning. That's where it all started. So how do you view yourself as a poet differently than as a musician, or do you do that at all? Is there a difference at all?
Well, I think there's a difference in approach because I do have a lot of respect for the craft of the two differently. But I think in terms of where the words and the inspiration and the premises and concepts come from, it's the same well of experience. It's the same well of historical knowledge. It's the same well of like putting all my identities together in order to create something that hopefully resonates with people. So in that way, it's the same thing, but I'm kind of like a hard-headed, stubborn purist in that when I'm writing a song, I want it to be a song, and when I'm writing poetry, I want it to be poetry. And there might be music in the poetry, but it doesn't make it a song, you know. I respect people who are adept at either or both. Like, I don't like muddying that for myself.
Cool. So as we mentioned, Language Barrier out next week. Sugar Cube Records first release.
Alongside our homies
At Church Key Records, who we've actually learned a lot about the process from.
Yeah.
So what does Language Barrier, and the title, the compilation of music on this record, what does that all mean to you?
Well, I feel like this is probably the thing I've thought about most in terms of just the thing I think about most, like from the writing process or from the conceptualization process to the writing process to the presentation of the record to a broader public. For me, Language Barrier is about the different ways that we practice love as an act of resistance. We constantly love people against the grain, across racial barriers, across being people of different foreign and native tongues, being people of same genders, which makes us defiant. So I was thinking about all these ways we practice love at different ages, and how we do this without thinking about it, like it's not necessarily a conscious thing, and how that in and of itself is a political act. Making these choices to love people against the grain is a political act. So Language Barrier is simply about that, all the ways we defy these imposed and implied borders, which I think language represents in some ways. So yeah, that's conceptually what it is, and it hopefully is the theme that runs throughout the record. It's not overt. I think hopefully it's pretty subtle, and I hope people either care about it. I hope they care about it, but mainly I hope they listen to the record and find their own meaning in it. But that's what it meant for me in the writing and the presentation process of it.
Cool. makes me want to listen to it again and listen with all that in mind.
Cool, good. Have you listened to the whole thing?
I have several times, and it actually it sounds better, and I'm biased, but it sounds better every time I listen to it. I mean, better in the sense that I'm able to hear it a little more clearly, a little more openly.
Cool.
So, yeah. So, how does it feel having created a label with your twin sister, and being able to release your own project, which you have a history of, but this time along with, the fellas at Church Key?
Well, I'll start with the Church Key part of that, because the other part might make me sentimental.
I understand.
Church Key, I've been a fan of the stuff that Church Key's been doing. Spider Bags is a really dope band. I think they did a few other records that of musicians or bands here that I'm a fan of, and they've been able to make it happen over long term. Hopscotch, their Hopscotch Day Party is hands down like the best day party to attend, and I had the pleasure of playing it this past year because of our new relationship. But Kyle and Steve are really open and generous with the information. They know that we're trying to start a label. We're just kind of just popping our record
bottles
cherry. And so they've been really generous with sharing information and kind of taking lead, but also letting us learn and take some risks in terms of we're doing this listening party, which is we're kind of the social end of this partnership. But I really look forward to applying what we're learning from them to future projects, and I'm just grateful that we have them as guides and mentors in that way. Mm-hmm. In terms of working with you on Sugar Cube, it's been just a process that I've adored mostly. But also, it's challenging to work with somebody you just love more than anything. So there's certainly room for growth, and we experience growing pains. But in terms of being two little black girls from Mount Olive, North Carolina, who's starting a record label, whose first record includes some of the best musicians, Grammy Award-winning, BET Award-winning, some of the best musicians that are making music today, I feel, is a major accomplishment, and I'm proud of us. Bottom line, I think our first record is a good record, and I would say that if I had nothing to do with it. Yeah. But I'm just proud of, and I'm excited about the process, excited about the unknowns, and I'm just proud that we could do this alongside Church Key.
Cool. Ditto. First of all, would you identify yourself as a queer activist? And if so, what does that mean to you?
I think as an artist, your charge is multifold. I think I carry all my identities with me all the time. So I'm never not queer. I'm never not an activist. I'm never not a black woman from the South, no matter where I am in the world. And I think, for me, creating a record like Language Barrier that on the outside doesn't look like a political act or a statement about the oppressions and difficulties that we systemically experience as this muddle of identities. Yeah. Although it doesn't look like that, that's what it is. Every work I make is somehow related to that. I think it was, we might have to do a correction, but I think it was Etheridge Knight who said that no matter, as a black artist, even if you're writing about a flower, you're writing a black poem or you're writing a black song, that's just the truth of the experience. Yeah. There's nothing I can do as an artist that does not include and somehow highlight or examine the experience of all these things, these isms in America that I live with every single day. So to call Language Barrier an act of resistance and say love is an act of resistance, to me, first is founded in my blackness, because that's the thing I experience most blatantly every day, moving through the world is my blackness. Also, the other components of identity that inspire me every day are present. Yeah. And hopefully people can listen to this record and from that see how they can be empowered and challenge systems of oppression in their own way. Mm-hmm. Whether you're screaming it or whether it's subtle, it all matters and it's important.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and I think that thread extends through Sugar Cube, like the record label itself, you know. Yeah, it's kind of what we hope to represent.
Yeah, we made a decision to create music or to put out music that is in and of itself genre defiant, is in and of itself challenges the systems that say this is what you can hear because this is the powers that be say this is how music is supposed to sound, and because you look this way, this is what you're supposed to create. Right. So, and I hope people see that as an act of empowerment. Yeah. But you know, we'll see. It's to be told.
And even in collaboration, like not cool. So how do you put your ideas into action?
Into action?
Action. Ideas to action.
That question annoys me a little bit. Well, I think, you know, you have a daughter who is my niece, who is my favorite person in the world. She's a 14-year-old black girl. She has direct access to a person, me, who is writing music, playing music, that is defiant, hopefully, that is full of love and creates, hopefully, collaboratively creative and teaches you how to work with people and teaches you how to assert your ideas as a black girl in America or in the world and assert your that you want your voice represented and actively pursuing that. So I that's how I interact or activate my ideas. I talk to my niece and she can see me as an example. I move through the world with the confidence that I've inherited from my people. I just do that every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the dose of honesty that she provides.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So is there any advice you can offer to the readers, listeners of AfterEllen.com on how they can also be engaged in their communities? Which I kind of goes back to what you just said.
Just do it, man. Be a student always be aware, always keep your ear to the ground, always collect and gather with people to build the community that you want to see exist, where you see injustice and fight it, talk about it, gather around it, use all your tools and resources to make a statement. I mean, and create work that represents the stuff that you want to represent you generations from now. That's how it's done, I believe. Mm. It feels like a simple formula, but the point is to just to actually do it and pursue it.
Yep. Right on. So, you know where we come from. Come from a small town in eastern North Carolina, which has its set of challenges, like any place, I guess. How has community in North Carolina, knowing where we come from and the journey to where we are now, and some people may think that we don't look like where we come from, which is what somebody told me the other day. I'm not really sure what that means. But so how has that both challenged that experience of coming from small town eastern North Carolina, challenged and bolstered you in creating community?
I think most of my creative ideas come from this very simple premise of sitting and watching and waiting, which I think is a very Southern thing. I think what we do, what I've learned from being a native of Mount Olive, North Carolina, is to sit and wait and watch and observe, and also to work hard. Mm-hmm. Like those two things somehow work together to create what I see is this poet vision, like this way of seeing the world that is interrogating and also very detail oriented, but also most importantly founded and perpetuated by hard work.
Yeah.
So that's what I come from, and I take that everywhere. And I'm just a curious being. So wherever I go, I look for people. I'm intrigued by things. I'm intrigued by people, and I think that's like very much about where I'm from and how I came up.
So last question. Gonna take it to the house on this one.
Yep.
What's one thing that folks wouldn't be able to know about you through an internet search or lurk, which sounds creepier?
I don't know. I guess they wouldn't know I have a cat named Fiddle. I guess they wouldn't know that, like, I have a secret desire to be a drummer. Like, I think drummers are, I find drumming to be, like, the most intricately difficult thing to do. I don't know. There's so much information now, just readily available. Yeah.
Maybe that your niece calls you her uncle.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my niece calls me her uncle, which I think is hilarious. That I love chicken wings. Yeah, and I guess you would just, I love my people, love my family, my chosen family, my blood family, and I love spending time with people that I adore.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Twin.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
This is fun.
Yep. Thanks to the folks at AfterEllen.com. Thanks to
Christine, who's behind the camera.
Yep. And
Come out of her busy day to come hang out with us at the Carrick.
yeah, thanks to the Carrick for allowing us to use the space, the beautiful artwork in the backdrop. And that's it.
Thank you. Language Barrier.
February 5th, SugarCubeRecords.com.
I cross an ocean tomorrow if I could walk on water. Empty all my pockets of the most useless content. Lay on mama's shoulder, admit I have no options. Cause I'm getting older, reflections are obnoxious.
The shit is getting real, who needs a continent? So fuck your four-wall, spotted dog, picket fence. And fuck a definition, we need a sweeter religion. We need a urgent intervention, yo, the clock is ticking. Assuming life is a bitch, I think the bitch is a